Shemu'el Aleph, or 1 Samuel 28 through 31, and Psalm 18. And it came to be in those days that the Philistines gathered their armies for battle to fight with Israel. And Achish said to David, "You know, of course, that you are to go out with me in the army, you and your men." And David said to Achish, "Very well, you shall know what your servant should do." And Achish said to David, "Very well, I make you one of my chief guardians forever." And Shemu'el had died, and all Israel had mourned for him and buried him in Ramah, in his own city. And Sha'ul had put away the mediums and spiritists from the land. And the Philistines were gathered and came and encamped at Shunem. And Sha'ul gathered all Israel, and they encamped at Gilboa. And when Sha'ul saw the army of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart trembled greatly. And Sha'ul inquired of Yehovah, but Yehovah did not answer him, either by dreams, or by Urim, or by the prophets. Sha'ul then said to his servants, "Find me a woman who is a medium, to go to her and inquire of her." And his servants said to him, "Look, there is a woman who's a medium at Endor." And Sha'ul disguised himself and put on other garments and went, and he and 2 men with him. And they came to the woman by night, and he said, "Please divine for me and bring up for me the one I shall name." But the woman said to him, "Look, you know what Sha'ul has done, how he has cut off the mediums and the spiritists from the land. Why then do you lay a snare for my life and put me to death?" And Sha'ul swore to her by Yehovah, saying, "As Yehovah lives, no punishment comes upon you for this matter." And the woman said, "Whom do I bring up for you?" So he said, "Bring up Shemu'el for me." And when the woman saw Shemu'el, she cried out with a loud voice. And the woman spoke to Sha'ul, saying, "Why have you deceived me? You yourself are Sha'ul." And the sovereign said to her, "Do not be afraid. What did you see?" And the woman said to Sha'ul, "I saw a spirit coming up out of the earth." And he said to her, "What is his form?" And she said, "An old man is coming up, and he is covered with a mantle." And Sha'ul knew that it was Shemu'el, and he bowed with his face to the ground and did obeisance. And Shemu'el said to Sha'ul, "Why have you disturbed me by bringing me up?" And Sha'ul answered, "I'm deeply distressed, for the Philistines are fighting against me, and Elohim has turned aside from me and does not answer me any more, neither by prophets nor by dreams. So I've called you to reveal to me what should I do." Then Shemu'el said, "And why do you ask me, seeing Yehovah has turned aside from you and has become your enemy? And Yehovah has done for himself as he spoke by me. For Yehovah has torn the rein out of your hand and has given it to your neighbor, to David. Because you did not obey the voice of Yehovah, nor execute his burning wrath upon Amalek, therefore Yehovah has done this matter to you today. Further, Yehovah also gives Israel with you into the hand of the Philistines. And tomorrow you and your sons are with me. Yehovah also gives the army of Israel into the hand of the Philistines." And immediately Sha'ul fell on the ground, his complete length, and greatly feared because of the words of Shemu'el. And there was no strength in him, for he had eaten no food all day or all night. And the woman came to Sha'ul and saw that he had been greatly disturbed, and said to him, "See, your female servant has obeyed your voice, and I have put my life in my hands and have listened to the word which you spoke to me. And now, Please listen to the voice of your female servant too, and let me set a piece of bread before you and eat, so you have strength when you go on your way." But he refused and said, "I'm not going to eat." But his servants, together with the woman, urged him, and he listened to their voice. So he rose from the ground and sat on the bed, and the woman had a fatted calf in the house, and she quickly slaughtered it, and she took flour and kneaded it, and baked unleavened bread from it. And she brought it before Sha'ul and his servants, and they ate and rose up and went away that night. Chapter 29. And the Philistines gathered all their armies at Aphek, while Israel encamped by a fountain which is in Yisrael. And the princes of the Philistines were passing on by hundreds and by thousands, and David and his men were passing on in the rear with Achish. And the princes of the Philistines said, "Who are these Hebrews?" And Achish said to the princes of the Philistines, "Is this not David, the servant of Sha'ul, sovereign of Israel, who has been with me these days or these years? And to this day I found no evil in him since he came over." But the princes of the Philistines were wroth with him, and the princes of the Philistines said to him, "Send the man back, and let him return to the place which you have appointed for him. Do not let him go down with us to battle, lest in the battle he become our adversary. For with what could he appease his master, if not with the heads of these men? Is this not David, of whom they sang to each other in dances, saying, 'Sha'ul struck his thousands, and David his 10,000s. And Achish called David and said to him, "As Jehovah lives, you have been straight, and your going out and your coming in with me in the army is good in my eyes. For to this day I have not found evil in you since the day of your coming to me, but in the eyes of the princes you are not good. And now return and go in peace, and do no evil in the eyes of the princes of the Philistines." And David said to Achish, "But what have I done? And to this day, what have you found in your servant, as long as I have been with you, that I should not go and fight against the enemies of my master, the sovereign?" But Achish answered and said to David, "I know that you are good in my eyes as a messenger of Elohim, but the princes of the Philistines have said, 'Let him not go with us to the battle.' And now rise early in the morning with your master's servants who have come with you, and as soon as you are up early in the morning and have light, then go." And David and his men rose up early to go in the morning to return to the land of the Philistines. And the Philistines went up to Israel. Chapter 30. And it came to be, when David and his men came to Ziklag on the third day, that the Amalekites had invaded the south and Ziklag, and struck Ziklag and burned it with fire. And they took captive the women and those who were there, from small to great. They did not kill anyone, but they led them away and went on their way. And David and his men came to the city and saw it burned with fire, and their wives and their sons and their daughters had been taken captive. And David and the people who were with him lifted up their voices and wept until they had no more power to weep. And David's two wives, Ahinoam, the Israelitess, and Abigail, the widow of Nabal, the Carmelite, had been taken captive. And David was greatly distressed, for the people spoke of stoning him. The being of all the people was grieved, each for his sons and his daughters. But David strengthened himself in Jehovah his Elohim, and David said, to Abiathar the priest, son of Ahimelech, "Please bring me the shoulder garment here to me." So Abiathar brought the shoulder garment to David, and David inquired of Jehovah, saying, "Do I pursue this band? Do I overtake them?" And he answered him, "Pursue, for you shall certainly overtake them and certainly rescue." So David went, he and the 600 men who were with him, and came to the Wadi Besor, where a halt was made by those who were left behind, while David pursued, he and 400 men, for 200 halted, who were too faint to pass over the Wadi Besor. And they found a man in the field, a Mitzrite, and took him to David. And they gave him bread, and he ate. And they let him drink water, and gave him a piece of cake of figs and 2 clusters of raisins. And when he had eaten, his strength came back to him, for he had not eaten bread nor drunk water for 3 days and 3 nights. And David said to him, "To whom do you belong, and where are you from?" And he said, "I'm a young man from Mitzrayim, servant of an Amalekite, and my master left me behind, for I had been sick 3 days. We attacked the south of the Kerethites, and against that which belongs to Yehudah, and upon the south of Caleb, and we burned Ziklag with fire." And David said to him, "Could you bring me down to this marauding band?" And he said, "Swear to me by Elohim that you neither kill me nor surrender me into the hands of my master. Then I'll bring you down to this marauding band." And he brought him down, and saw they were spread out all over the land, eating and drinking and celebrating because of all the great spoil which they had taken from the land of the Philistines and from the land of Yehudah. And David struck them from twilight until the evening of the next day, and none of them escaped, except 400 young men who rode on camels and fled. And David rescued all that the Amalekites had taken. David also rescued his 2 wives, and there was none missing to them, whether small or great, whether sons or daughters or spoil, or whatever they had taken from them. David recovered all. Besides, David captured all the flocks and herds they had driven before those livestock, and they said, "This is David's spoil." And David came to the 200 men who were too faint to follow David, who had been left at the Wadi Besor. And they went out to meet David and to meet the people who were with him. And when David came near the people, he greeted them. And all the evil and worthless men of those who went with David answered and said, "Because they did not go with us, we don't give them any of the spoil that we've rescued, except for every man's wife and children. Let them take them and go." But David said, "My brothers, do not do so with what Yehovah has given us, who has protected us and gave into our hands the band that came against us. And who would listen to you in this matter? For as his portion is who goes down to the battle, so is his portion who remains alike with the baggage. They share alike." And it came to be from that day forward, he appointed it for a law and a right ruling in Israel to this day. And when David came to Ziklag, he sent some of the spoil to the elders of Yehudah, to his friends, saying, "Here's a present for you from the spoil of the enemies of Yehovah." To those in Bethel, and to those in Ramoth of the south, and to those in Yatir, and to those in Aroer, and to those in Sifmoth, and to those in Eshtemoa, and to those in Rakal, and to those in the cities of the Yerahmeelites, and to those in the cities of the Canaanites, and to those in Hormah, and to those in Korashan, and to those in Athak, and to those in Hebron, and to all the places where David had gone up and down, he and his men. Chapter 31. And the Philistines were fighting against Israel, and the men of Israel fled from before the Philistines and fell slain on Mount Gilboa. And the Philistines followed hard after Sha'ul and his sons. And the Philistines struck Jehonathan and Abinadab and Malchishua, sons of Sha'ul. And the battle went hard against Sha'ul, and the archers hit him so that he was severely wounded by the archers. And Sha'ul said to his armor-bearer, "Draw your sword and thrust me through with it, lest these uncircumcised men come and thrust me through and roll themselves on me." But his armor-bearer would not, for he was greatly afraid. So Sha'ul took the sword and fell on it. And when his armor-bearer saw that Sha'ul was dead, he also fell on his sword and died with him. Thus Sha'ul died, and 3 of his sons, and his armor-bearer, also all his men, together on that day. And they saw the men of Israel who were beyond the valley, and those who were beyond the Jordan, and the men of Israel had fled, and that Sha'ul and his sons were dead. So they forsook the cities and fled, and the Philistines came and dwelt in them. And the next day it came to be, when the Philistines came to strip the slain, that they found Sha'ul and his 3 sons fallen on Mount Gilboa. And they cut off his head and stripped off his armor and sent word throughout the land of the Philistines to announce it in the house of their idols and to the people. And they placed his armor in the house of Ashtaroth, and they fastened his body to the wall of Bethshan. And the inhabitants of Yabesh Gilad heard what the Philistines had done to Sha'ul. And all the brave men arose and went all night and took the body of Sha'ul and the bodies of his sons from the wall of Bethshan. And they came to Yabesh and burned them there. And they took the bones and buried them under the tamarisk tree at Yabesh, and fasted for 7 days. Psalm 18. I love you, O Yehovah, my strength. Yehovah is my rock and my stronghold and my deliverer. My El is my rock, I take refuge in him. My shield and the horn of my deliverance, my high tower. I call upon Yehovah, the one to be praised, and I am saved from my enemies. The cords of death surrounded me, and the floods of Belial made me afraid. The cords of Sheol were all around me. The snares of death were before me. In my distress, I called upon Yehovah, and to my Elohim I cried. He heard my voice from his Hakal, and my cry went before him into his ears, and the earth shook and trembled. Even the foundations of the mountains were troubled, and they shook because he was wroth. Smoke went up from his nostrils, and consuming fire from his mouth. Coals were kindled by it, and he bowed the heavens and came down, and thick darkness was under his foot. And he rode upon a cherub and flew, and he flew upon the wings of the wind. He made darkness his covering, around him his booth, darkness of waters, thick clouds of the skies. From the brightness before him, his thick clouds passed, hail and coals of fire. And Yehovah thundered in the heavens, and the Most High sent forth his voice, hail and coals of fire. And he sent out his arrows and scattered them, and much lightning and confused them. And the channels of waters were seen, and the foundations of the world were uncovered. At your rebuke, O Yehovah, at the blast of the breath of your nostrils, he sent from above. He took me. He drew me out of many waters. He delivered me from my strong enemy and from those hating me, for they were stronger than I. They confronted me in the day of my calamity, but Yehovah was my support, and he brought me out into a large place. He delivered me, for he delighted in me. Yehovah rewarded me according to my righteousness. According to the cleanness of my hands he repaid me. For I've guarded the ways of Yehovah, and have not acted wrongly against my Elohim. For all his right rulings are before me, and I did not turn from his laws, and I am perfect before him. And I guard myself from my crookedness. And Yehovah repays me according to my righteousness, according to the cleanness of my hands before his eyes. With the lovingly committed, you show yourself lovingly committed. With the perfect one, you show yourself perfect. With the clean, you show yourself clean, and with the crooked, you show yourself twisted. For you save the afflicted people and bring down those whose eyes are haughty. For you yourself light my lamp. Yehovah, my Elohim, makes my darkness light. For with you I run against a band, and with my Elohim I leap over a wall. The El. His way is perfect. The word of Yehovah is proven. He is a shield to all who take refuge in him. For who is Eloah besides Yehovah, and who is a rock except our Elohim? It is El who girds me with strength and makes my way perfect, making my feet like the feet of a deer. It sets me on high places, teaching my hands for battle, so that my arms shall bend a bow of bronze, and you give me the shield of your deliverance. And your right hand supports me, and your lowliness makes me great. You enlarge my step under me, and my feet shall not slip. I pursue my enemies and overtake them, and do not turn back till they are destroyed. I crush them, and they are unable to rise. They fall under my feet. And you gird me with strength for battle. Because my adversaries bow under me, and you have made my enemies turn their backs. As for those hating me, I cut them off. They cry, but no one's there to save. To Yehovah, but he answers them not. And I beat them as dust before the wind. I empty them out like dirt in the streets. You deliver me from the strivings of the people. You set me at the head of nations. A people I have not known serve me. As soon as they hear of me, they obey me. The foreigners submit to me. The foreigners fade away and come frightened from their strongholds. Yehovah lives, and blessed is my rock, and exalted is the Elohim of my deliverance, the El who gives vengeance to me. And he humbles the people under me, my deliverer from my enemies. You lift me up above those who rise against me. You deliver me from a man of violence. Therefore I give thanks to you, O Yehovah, among nations, and I sing praise to your name, making great the deliverance of his sovereign, and showing loving commitment to his anointed, to David and his seed forever.